I am Maaike Kleverlaan, writer-director from British Columbia, Canada. Within Blender, I'm working on the project Gold. I'm the writer and director of the short film.
Other than the other movies, it has a very different setting this time, different art style. It plays on the ocean and underwater. And there's a finite cast. It's basically just one main character.
The character, Mikasa, we name her Mikasa, but she never speaks or says her name. She's sailing on the sea, but then something happens on the boat and she gets hit and her head is cracked and she goes into the water. And from there, she just keeps sinking deeper and deeper.
So we have this like sinking metaphor, and she does everything she can, as you do, right? When you're hit by something, you kind of struggle to maintain, you struggle to go back to what you were before, you try to, not sink. And then what we use as a kind of expression of that impact of trauma is cracking. So her body cracks more and more the deeper she goes. And then the story is really about how do you get back out of it, and how do you do this in a way that allows you to become something more beautiful, more poignant.
It's gonna be really artistic and personal and feeling wise. I'm not too much of a feeling movie. I like more action, but I think it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna look awesome.
It's a lot about what happens in her head, in her mind.
I was super interested and excited about telling someone's personal story, because that's something that we haven't really done before.
For me, very specifically, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2019. In the fall, after having just lost my father. So it's really these two things right back to back. And so for me, a lot of the imagery that's in the film, or that the film is based on, comes from my own experience of how I pulled myself out of that. So a lot of the things that I was wrestling with and like having this huge, existential crisis or whatever, I would go all the way around this thought process and then come to the conclusion that's actually true for everybody. And so this is what inspired me to want to tell the story, because I feel like it doesn't matter what knocked you out of the boat. That's not the point. The human experience of trauma, of something, of some kind, and of wrestling with it and experiencing a breakage of some kind. Very few of us go through life without encountering something like that. That for me was my experience. So when I got the diagnosis for cancer, you can imagine that's boom, hits you in the head kind of thing. And there was a choice that I made. In my case, I made it immediately, but I think it's fine in the story to put it later. But it was the decision to not look at that as something I'm going to battle, something that's the enemy, something that, but to be this is a teacher.
We wanted to go for something that kind of looks like an oil painting, and then we wanted to have something that people really haven't seen before. So that's a technical challenge in itself. Yeah, that was the first and the biggest task, probably, to find a way to implement the look in a way that it is unique and aesthetically pleasing and fits and supports the story and everything.
Any thoughts about this, about the thing, and also this, I was talking to you at lunch, the meeting was okay, in terms of input.
Yeah, no, I think it's been really, really good.
Okay.
When I first met with Blender, the idea was that I would come for longer periods of time. But I had said at the time too, I'm still in treatment for cancer prevention. I needed to go back for medical reasons. I couldn't be gone, I couldn't just move. And this did cause some concern in the beginning. This was something that we talked about up front a lot, was it gonna work and could it work? And then we sort of planned out, 7 or 8 trips for me to be able to come back, allow me to work with the team, build the connection, and then continue the process from home, working remotely. And most of the time that means I'm 9 hours different. This is, I think, the hardest part is the time zone difference. But still, I rearranged my days so I had an hour or 2 per day available.
So there's a couple of changes happening recently. In the studio, I noticed that people are getting a little bit worn out.
At the beginning of January, Francesco asked, to have a conversation, and for me, I was like, okay, this is like, we're moving into production, so it felt like a natural time to do a kickoff and like talk about what we were going to try to achieve for the month or whatever, and that wasn't the conversation.
2006 was the first open movie. So it's 18 years ago that we did this. So it's time to think again. How can we refresh the whole concept? Or how can we do something that will make us nervous again? Like, oh my God, if we could do that, that would be so amazing.
My understanding from Francesco was that having spent some time talking to everybody after people went away on holiday and came back and talking to them, it just became clear that the team, this is me paraphrasing what he said, but that the team, they were tired. They hadn't really recovered from Wing It, and they needed something that wasn't as big scope.
So the main thing is we will finish the current film as efficient as possible. It will still be amazing. The artwork, what I see, is going to be super special. But we tend to make things bigger and bigger and more complicated and more complicated. And then it will take another year. And I think that will kill the team too much. It's too much. That will give us a complete burnout of several people.
They felt they could do 6 minutes-ish, which is a 25% cut from the 8, which was already a cut from the 9 it was originally. So this I had to sit with for a little bit and be like, okay, can we tell something that is distilled, that is poetic, that is poignant, that carries the through line, the most important part of this? Can we do that in 6 minutes? Because if it's going to feel rushed, or it's going to feel like we're better off not making it. I don't want to tell a story in which we pretend that getting through trauma is easy.
He really has to put on his acting skills now because he usually never works. So.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I've been doing some storyboards, layout, or previous, and now I'm doing some animation. Also, I was doing some 2D storyboards, and that was super fun. But later, putting everything on 3D, that was challenging also, because drawing is easy. You draw whatever you want, but putting that into reality makes, it's more complex than it sounds. We were gonna use this for editing the crack version. So like this, we can decide when we need a crack to having some deformation on the hand. So like we know, for example, in all the joints we will need more cracking because they need to move. I did a small test of her sailing to test the different techniques of animation that we are gonna have, camera movements also, and adding the wind and everything. I will need to go back and finish it.
I was asked at the start of January to take the film in its current form and see if I could make a version that is shorter. And that's not an easy task at all. I'm being asked to take somebody's, personal story, but try to look at it like as objectively as possible and try to see, can I make a proposal that takes maybe like 8+ minutes of film and shave off 2 minutes. You know that it all means something to the creator. Like it really, like anything you strip away, it has a level of meaning. So
there's like many of these variables that are there that we're trying to make fit into something coherent to a fresh viewer that knows nothing about the context of older versions
I
of this and
understand.
whatnot.
Yeah.
Right now, as it is, we have Mikasa, who is seemingly a normal human being that gets hit in the head, right? She's in the water, and there's a gaping head wound, like a hole in her head. And it turns out that, her brain isn't leaking out and there's no blood. It's actually a hollow creature, that this thing is reminiscent of a porcelain doll, but it's some kind of a hollow thing. Potentially, more importantly, the whole thing of what the hell is going on here in the head, it gets lost on the fresh viewer because she's thrashing around and it's all very confusing. So we could hypothetically just, for example, allow there to be just these fine cracks, but it's not a gaping head wound.
Yeah.
And then as she is sinking, she's getting more of these cracks because of the pressure. If the idea is only 20% there,
I mean, the
is
idea
it actually there, and is it just in the way?
I mean, one of the ideas is also because this is happening to her because that's what makes her sink, because she fills with water.
Yeah, if you were a fresh viewer,
you would never understand it.
You would never.
I understand.
Ever.
I see your point, I understand it, and I think if we make it more about the cracking, you're like, oh, what the fuck? Like, you would be surprised that she's like, she has a crack. Why is that's not how humans look like, but you wouldn't, at least it's not a freaking hole that you ask, wait, is a hole? Is she hollow? Why doesn't she bleed? Like, at least with a crack, it's more of a superficial thing. So you would wonder more like, what is she made of? I mean, I can tell her, like, this is a thing we need to agree on then.
Hello.
Hi.
Good.
Okay, so here we are. Good morning. How do we really show and sell the fact that she has this hole where the water pours in? I know that it's a super important bit that was there since the beginning of time in the story, and there was a whole sequence even as she's on the surface with the water pouring in, and as we try to simplify, like, we feel that, okay, this is almost a leftover from that, and by making it a crack, to me at least, the huge appeal is that you establish this theme of the cracking that keeps going and going and going until she's shattered, and then she recovers, and then it's all about that. We think that this can make the sequence work much better, but obviously it's a very big story beat that needs to change, and I would like to communicate this with you and to know if you have thoughts about this. And I mean, mostly just to get your opinion on it. Do you disagree or with the choice itself? And I mean, sorry.
The key image that generated the entire film is this.
Yeah.
And the reason that it was there is that the concept of being struck so hard that you are open to the influence of everything that drags you down. That was the sort of concept. So you're talking about taking that out. Do I understand what you're saying? Sure. Yes, I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I know obviously this is frustrating for you, and I know that I am making you take a lot of frustrating decisions lately, but for now, the trade-off of having a good delivery of her emotions as she sinks, that's what you get from this. I think that then it might be worth it. Thank you again, Jerica. Really appreciate it, and let's keep in touch. And you can obviously we can talk later also if you want. You can always write me. Thank you, Jerica.
Thanks, Jerica.
Talk soon. Bye bye.
Bye. I had no idea that the water going in, that was such a core element from her perspective. But also, looking back, I don't know how I could have known that. I was very much just looking at the narrative, okay, something needs to be cut.
And I know how important it is, right? But everything is important.
Yeah, so then that's the thing also. Yeah, it's all important, and no matter what you touch, you feel like you're,
Yeah, I know. She wants the film to happen. She is willing to accept the conditions. Obviously, it's not like, oh wow, what a great idea, let me cut down even more. Obviously, for her, it's hard to let go, of these things because they mean a lot to her. I understand. We are here trying to make the film. So it's like, I'm sorry that this is like emotionally taxing for everyone, and I'm trying to get out of this space as soon as possible, but I don't think that it would help to dump a list of things on her desk to say, we're going to remove this, and this. And otherwise, we are not going to do the movie, because otherwise, obviously, it's way too easy to say, well, then let's not do the movie. I think it's more interesting that we find a way to do it.
Yeah,
I know we're
of
on the
course.
edge.
In this case, it's a very big factor that unfortunately our director and production designer are abroad. They are basically on the other side of the world, so that makes it especially not easy.
We were always on a relatively tight schedule because we wanted to have things done just in a certain amount of time, but things were just not happening at that speed. We were constantly running out of time, needed to make some decisions to move forward with the project, and also because Jerica was abroad, we had some issues with the communication cycle of getting feedback, implementing the feedback, and then making decisions that we could stick to in the process of the production.
No, this is 60. This is 60. The syncing. Most of these notes, they all, well, not most, like almost all of them are growing.
Yeah,
the
I
entire
know,
thing.
I see it.
So I want to be sure that, like, what the task at hand for me was, make the 6-minute version of the film,
Yeah.
and try to make it work.
Yeah.
And if I were to just follow all of these things, we are now talking about a 7-minute film, possibly more, because the beginning of the film has to be,
Yeah, I
it's
understand.
a little bit in question mark and whatnot. So
What is the current length of the film?
right now the film is just over 6 minutes long. It's like 6 minutes 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's not bringing in the new beginning,
Yeah.
which is inherently going to be longer.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit hard to move forward, to approve things, to get the good communication, the good information going back and forth.
I think discrepancy between what I was feeling when I was here working with people and then kind of the report I got back, saying like, this isn't working. And I was like, oh, okay. That was really hard to hear. And I think it's just that I thought I was on the team. I think it's that. It's like I thought I was on the team. And then it suddenly felt like I'm not. And I don't think it was easy for anyone. I'll just say it like that. I don't think it was easy for anybody. And I think Francesco was trying to protect the team and the vision, and so he was really running interference. So he and I would have long talks and really discuss, like, what is the film about and what do we want here? And then he was doing the translation.
Definitely this week we should start, and at the end of the month we should have a frame that shows us what the film looks like, and a series of cuts that shows like at least half of the edit being like, this is what's gonna happen, just go and animate it, and we do it.
I
just do it.
But then I look here and everyone's so low energy.
People have enough experience that they know this is going to be a shitload of work, but I don't think that if we were making any other film at this point of the project, people would be like, oh yeah, it's going to be great, because it's always a shitload of work. And we've been in these meetings for every film we had, I think.
Yeah, but it's different in this case because for this film we don't have a director here, and usually the role of the director is to rally everyone on. And I think that's a bit my criticism all the time, that if we don't have a director here with us that really pulls the team forward through this phase, then it's really difficult to do it. So I think this is a unique situation where we do have a very difficult film, and it's more difficult than anything we've done before. Plus, there is Jerica's not here.
I just spoke to the team about canceling Project Gold and wrapping it up.
In a new turn of events, Francesco has decided, after discussing with some members of the team and Ton, to not make the movie and to change the project into something smaller.
It was a thing that I always feared, which is that we would essentially not have a film, which is like the thing I dreaded.
It means like that we stop working on the film as we are now, and that we change our target, we change what we want to do with the material that we've done so far.
So what happened right after Francesco, wrote me and said this was happening, was he and I, it took me a little time actually. I took some hours with it before I reached back out or could really center my thoughts, and then we talked it through. We talked about why, we talked about the circumstances that were at work within the studio.
How do you know if something works or not from the start? Especially when you're making something that you've never done before. That's super challenging.
I didn't expect it to be as impactful as I thought it would be, because we were already hinging on the fact that, like, since the beginning of the year, it was already a critical state of the project where things weren't moving fast enough.
I really feel like I failed at making this happen, because that's what I did. So it's not just a feeling. I know I failed trying to do something different and trying to do something like we've never done before on many, many levels.
I think it was just always maybe too big for it's a very small studio. It's very easy to become too ambitious with what you're trying to do, and then we just cannot deliver on that ambition.
It made sense where they were at, and then it became a question of what do we do next? Like, okay, what are the next steps?
The idea is to put out a showcase that is fantastic, and we are putting lots of love and care in making sure that it looks and sounds and feels as good as it can. And in the showcase, besides showing the tools themselves, you also get a glimpse of what the work was and how the film was supposed to look like. And I hope that this material that we are putting out there is gives a very good picture of what the film could look like. And I hope that that is something that is useful for Jerika as she looks for further ways to finish the project. I hope that this is something that can help her to do that.
It's like, okay, let's go for it. Take the best moments in the film, take the strongest storytelling, the magical moments that we have, and, make what you can with that.
Knowing that gold as we have seen it now will not happen is incredibly sad. I can close my eyes and see the film. I can see how amazing. I have these flashes of the film of how it's going to look like and how it's going to feel, how it's going to sound, and I imagine it on this screen, and like how some stuff you're going to wonder, how does this even happen? How does this work? This is magic, and it's both like the magic that you see on screen and the magic of the story, that there is this surprise and this wonder, and at the same time the way it's executed, like that's what motivated me all along to make the film.
Like, even if you go through all the hardships and you pushed through, you made compromises, all of that stuff, but at the end of it, you have a film.
This is something that I do know for a fact that it would have costed us something that was beyond this feeling that I just described. So that should give you an idea of how bad this could have been.
And yeah, there's relief in the sense that, okay, let's not try and, fix things. Let's try and make something new.
We spent now more than a year working on this film, and we've developed tools and workflows, and also the whole pipeline within the studio has gotten a lot better. The work deserves to be shown in whatever way possible.
We're finally acknowledging our limitations, and it's important because we need to move forward knowing ourselves better.
The film is gonna be forever, but you don't live forever. So then, at some point you can also choose to, live a better life than to make a beautiful film that lasts forever. It's a choice, but when it comes to a group of people and when it comes to a team, I think it's a responsible choice to make.
we do like, woo! Yeah, exactly. And little hands that come out.
Small pirate head.
I mean, the whole dynamic was entirely different after the project was cancelled as a short film. With Geometry Notes, we had a very modular system that we could hook up to from different angles in a way that everything uses the same brushstroke technique, and so everything is visually coherent just by that, because it's all using the same system.
It's coming along. I think people aren't, trying to kill themselves, of course, now, trying to put things together, but it's everybody's doing their part, and so all the puzzle pieces are coming together. It is a different thing that we're making now, of course, with all these breakdowns and whatnot. Also, the shots aren't necessarily exactly the way they would have been in the film, because they have to be slightly adjusted for the new version that we're making.
I can try to do it in this shot, for example. I can start with this one and do the treatment with the boat, with the blink.
Did you? Hell yeah! Sexy blink.
And I blink like a whale, and then I didn't have nose. Underwater.
Look at me.
It's an underwater blink. I know. You cannot even see anything.
No, I see it. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's it.
That's good.
Later, it's gonna be a brushstroke, and you're not going to see any animation.
Just one brushstroke.
I'm doing a little bit of a tweak with the camera work. The eye fix is pretty good. You're looking at her, and she's here. And then, so this is the A of the shot. We go further down the line, and she starts drifting really far in the center. So I just want to make sure that on the B of the shot that her composition is something slightly closer to here.
This year,
Like this, like sound of wind hitting sails and
maybe
creak of
a little bit. Then here you wanted to have the sound of wood, creaking wood, which I think is a very good point. And you prepare the scene, so for the credits themselves. So it's just a matter of going in and typing in the credits, right? The plan is to have a pre-premiere for the showcase at Blender Conference, and after so much hard work, it feels very rewarding to see your film on a big screen. And after this, the following week, we are going to put this online. I think that the powerful imagery and the powerful narrative that there is in this short film, it still shines through in the work that we have done. And so now we have our final piece. It's the Project Gold showcase from Blender Studio. And this is an absolute pre-premiere. And I hope that it inspires everyone to try out the tools and the technology that we developed and built, which is going to be available on the Blender Studio website and on the extensions platform. So enjoy.